What's up, guys? So I am in Manila, more specifically Quezon City. That is where my family is located. If you guys didn't know, I'm Chinese Filipino by descent. I'm technically 100% Chinese blood, but we have generations of my family that have been here in the Philippines already. So both my parents were born here before migrating to the US, where I was born. So I'm very familiar with the Philippines. I was here a lot when I was a kid, like 20 years ago. Now coming as an adult, it's a really interesting and different experience, and I wanted to share you guys some of my first impressions. Manila is just chaos, man. Like, just all the cities in Southeast Asia, the big capital cities, are sprawling with a lot of people. There's a lot of pollution. Yeah, I forget how bad the poverty is here, and when you walk around like the more local areas, you can kind of see it. The interesting thing with the Philippines is that you'll have a really nice area like BGC, where it's like a sprawling metropolis, very modern, right next to a bunch of slums. And the income distribution in the Philippines is really, really wide. It's kind of unfortunate to see. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to see it a lot, and it really messed with me, and it was really striking to me. But after spending time in a place like Colombia or some other third world countries, you just kind of get used to it. Filipinos are a really interesting mix, like look-wise, because you can easily put them in a place like Latin America and they would blend in. But you can tell that there's a little bit of like an Asian influence in there. Here feels a lot more like Latin America than any of the other Southeast Asian countries that I've been to. The food scene here is really big. Maybe it's just Manila. Everywhere that I've been to so far, there are just restaurants everywhere. But the food quality doesn't feel like super fresh, because I feel like it's very processed, and I get the feeling when I eat the food here, very similar to how the food is in the US, where I'm not like 100% full. It doesn't really sit in my stomach well, and I kind of have stomach aches after eating a lot. Also, you don't really get full that easily, so you end up eating like a lot of food. But Filipino food is very good. It's some of my favorite food in the world, and maybe it's because it's like comfort food for me. I have so many good memories from Filipino food, from like the garlic rice, the longaniza, sisig, fried bangus, sagot gulaman. All this stuff is like things that I grew up with. So Filipino food has a very special place in my heart, even though it may not be the healthiest. Something I did notice this time around, and I don't mean this to be offensive, here in Manila, the people are fairly obese. Maybe it's just like the food culture, maybe it's because the food is very processed as well. But when I was walking around, I walked around a couple of malls and just to kind of see how the people were, and it's a very striking difference coming from when I was in Vietnam, where the people are very skinny, very slender, the food is a lot lighter, coming to a place like here in the Philippines where the food is a lot heavier, and I believe the lifestyle is not too much like walking. Most people are just kind of in cars or in motos and stuff. It seems to me that the Filipinos, or maybe the ones that I'm surrounded with, are a little on the obese side, but not like naturally obese, more like the American obese, if that makes any sense, right? Which comes more from like lifestyle and food choices rather than just genetics. So I am in Quezon City, which is a city in Metro Manila. The best way to describe it is that they're kind of like the suburbs of Manila, right? Like inside of Manila, you have a bunch of areas. You have Makati, you have BGC, which I'm eventually going to visit. But Quezon City here, it feels like a very authentic experience, and there's a lot of Chinese Filipinos here. I didn't grow up here, I don't really speak Tagalog or anything. This whole entire culture and everything around here just feels so familiar, even though I don't really have an idea of what's going on. I have a whole entire set of family that lives here in the Philippines. They speak Tagalog, Hokkien, which is the Chinese dialect that we speak at home, and they speak English. It was a little weird when I first arrived to my grandma's house, and she only speaks Hokkien and Tagalog, but I don't speak either of those languages, so we were just like struggling to communicate. I think my purpose of being here this time around is just to reconnect with my family again and to really discover my roots and figure out where I come from, When I was in Thailand and when I was in Vietnam, those are more of like me vacationing as a foreigner, but then now I get to kind of experience it as like a half local, half tourist. And it's really nice just like hanging out with my family and then taking care of me, so I don't have to pay a lot of like for rent and food and stuff. So it's also very interesting seeing just the signs everywhere, because the vibe is like Latin America, but then you see a lot of English things everywhere, but then you'll see random words that are similar to Spanish. So like Hijas de Jesus for a church, or a lot of the names and the last names are Spanish last names. So it's very funny, like you'll see pictures of people where it'll be like De Leon or Navarro or like Latin names, but then they look Asian like me. So it's a really interesting like mix and twist of cultures that you can't really find anywhere else in the world. The number one way I can describe Manila though is that it just feels tight. It's very claustrophobic, It just feels like everywhere I walk here, I mean, I'm not even in the main areas. The main areas I feel like are a lot worse, and there's just a lot of people everywhere. You really feel the congestion. The pollution. Here in Manila is probably some of the worst that you'll find in Southeast Asia. So I'm still trying to adjust to it. But after spending a week in Vietnam and Saigon, I felt like it really messed up my throat and I got sick. And then coming here to the Philippines, it's even more polluted and even more like intense. My body's still trying to adjust to it, but you can definitely feel it. And I even feel like there's maybe something in the water too that my skin may not like. I know a lot of people that came to here or Saigon and they would take showers and they would break out when normally they wouldn't break out before. So if you're coming from like a first world country like in Europe or a place where tap water is really good, to realize that the tap water here maybe is not the best. Also, something I love about the Philippines is the music scene here. Here, very similar to America, people here worship like celebrities and singers. Yeah. So yeah, everything good. And you're gonna see a lot of karaoke everywhere and a lot of live music. That's a really important part of Filipino culture. Like karaoke is big in Vietnam and places, but here it's like huge. I remember this being such a big part of the culture and I forgot about it until I came back here. Also, I love Filipino music, man. Filipino pop music is quite fantastic, actually. It takes a lot of R&B influences, so like Michael Jackson, a lot of 90s R&Bs. This is the kind of music that my family listened to when I was growing up. So I'm walking over to the business of one of my aunts. It's like a health and wellness spa. I'm gonna get checked out by a doctor, and I think tomorrow they're gonna give me like a facial of some sort. But it's cool because a lot of my family members here have businesses. It reminds me a lot of how I grew up and the different values that we have from the people here who are a little more like on the Chinese side to me growing up in America and having a lot of those American values. I also forgot how short everybody is here in the Philippines. Like I'm at 5'7". I'm like really above average. I feel like I tower over quite a bit of people. So that's another reason why it kind of reminds me of Latin America, where I'm not really self-conscious about my height. If anything, I feel pretty tall. It's nice being around Tagalog again because the Tagalog has like a sing-song quality to it because it's very similar to Spanish, right? There's a lot of words that I guess cross over, but they're not written the same and they're like completely different actually. My Spanish is really good now, so I was trying to like understand some of the words in Tagalog, but I can't really make out a lot of things and they're spelled differently as well. But there's like a sing-song way that they talk that translates to the way that they speak English as well. So when Filipinos speak English, it's very nice and it's really like sweet sounding, you know? But one thing that I have to say that I love about Filipino culture is how welcoming they are and how polite they are. Anything when it comes to service-based stuff, they are very well-mannered. They'll call you sir and they speak English here.
Are you a vlogger, sir?
Yes, sir. You want to say hello?
Hello.
Hello. So that's something that always stood out to me about Filipinos is that they're very hospitable. Everywhere you go in the world, that Filipino hospitable culture is always there. That's why when you see Filipino workers, they're always like super friendly and nice. Every time you see Filipinos in the world too, they always kind of like coagulate together because there's just something about this culture that is so unique compared to the rest of Southeast Asia. Because yes, it is Asian, but it doesn't really feel that way. It does feel like the Latin America of here of Asia. That's why coming here to the Philippines, it's a very unique experience. I'm gonna be vlogging a lot here because I'm gonna be doing a lot of adventures with my family. I'm gonna meet up with other YouTubers here and try to discover a lot of Manila. But so far, my impressions of the Philippines is that it's cool. Like for me, it has a special place in my heart because my family is from here. But I don't think I would live here. Maybe it's just Manila. The vibe immediately is just not what I'm looking for. It just reminds me too much of Latin America. You can definitely tell that there's an air of like unsafety here. You know, you can't walk around with the same peace as you could in a place like Thailand or Vietnam. There's definitely a lot of corruption in the government as well. That's a very common complaint that a lot of Filipinos have. And it's interesting because now that I'm here, I understand why my parents wanted to leave and migrate to the US. I'll keep you guys posted. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.